kids, we're only drawing, But, I just got stuck with it, I guess, and the older I got, the more I wanted to do it. I'd look at other people's artwork, and I wanted to do that. So, just naturally fell into it. Yeah. Not thinking I was gonna go anywhere with it, just something I enjoyed. When I was a kid, I grew up in Oklahoma. The landscape wasn't that interesting where we lived, but my folks were from Utah, so we'd come out here in the summers and we'd go to Moab mostly. And I just loved the red rocks and the desert, and so when I got back home, that's what I would draw pictures of. And when I got a little older, there in Oklahoma City, they built the Cowboy Hall of Fame, which is really an art museum, is its main function. And they had original paintings there, which I'd never seen anywhere else. They had paintings by Remington and Russell, big paintings. And the Russell paintings blew me away. I'd never seen original painting, and just seen photos or whatever in the television. So I noticed the actual paint surface and texture. When I got up close, I remember really looking at the sagebrush. There were paintings of cowboys and Indians doing all kinds of crazy stuff, but I'm looking at that stuff over to the side, and the way he laid the sagebrush on there, it was just so loose, and from back here, it's sagebrush, but up close, it's blobs of paint just kind of slapped on there, it felt like. And it looks like so much fun to just do that. So that inspired me to paint. And I was doing psychedelic paintings. I was seeing rock and roll posters and whatnot in the 60s. Peter Max was one of my favorite, and he was a commercial artist who kind of became a fine artist, but his very graphic, poster-like imagery. So I had those kind of two things, the cowboy art and the psychedelic poster art. And I see it in my work now, and oh yeah, kind of reminds me of. Sometimes I push that color to a point where it's, maybe beyond reality. And maybe, the postery, I don't know if this is a good painting to talk about that, but I've got some of that, these are big shapes rather than, I'm not painting every leaf, I'm painting an interesting mass of leaves. So like in the old posters, there wasn't a lot of detail, there was a lot of big, flat color fields, and makes the landscapes even more real for some people, because you get that feeling of luminosity and that glow that it's hard to capture in a photograph or just a documentary type painting. Try to capture some of that feeling when you're in a landscape, which you can't. You're going from, when you're there, it's a 360-degree view of whatever, aspens, mountains. So it's tricky to pull a little triangle out of that and try to actually get that feeling of this. So if I can kind of capture that feeling in that space, that's successful, I would say. I don't really think about the method too much. Sometimes it's a case of, you're in a landscape such as this, you've got some interesting trees, you've got some back here, you've got a mountain, you've these pines, sometimes we have to move things around a little to get that feeling of all this. Because there's no one spot where you get it all, so we can adjust things and maybe accentuate certain parts of if the mountain is maybe fuzzier than you want to bring it a little closer and a little more delineated, so you can kind of set off the nice edges of the foliage. So I'm not trying to document so much. I'm basing my paintings on a place or a landscape, and it's more like a drama than a documentary in that sense. So even when I am doing iconic formations, I do want to play with it a little bit. So there's always some imagination in there. And I have noticed that certain times of year, like around here, there's a mesa out here by Kenilworth. And most of the year, the sun is really to the south of that. So it's always in shadow during the day. Early in the day, there's lights along the edges, this edge and the top of it. And as the day goes by, then the light kind of moves around to this edge. But that's, I can look at those shadows for a long time and really study the nuances in the shadows. So I look for that a lot. When I go out plein air, I like to find that viewpoint where it's basically backlit. And I don't feel so rushed to try to capture that light and shadow and things early in the day and later in the day, especially. That light's changing so fast that you have to kind of get it in your head and just stick with a certain amount of light and shadow. So there's that. Watercolor, and maybe the way I do it too is takes me longer, and it's more laying down a wash, let that dry, kind of look at it, study it, and another wash. So I usually don't even try to do that outside. For me, that's more of a studio painting thing I do with watercolor. I'll sketch. If I'm going to do a watercolor, I'll just do a sketch outside. And then I do probably use more imagination in the watercolors. There's a lot of fun things that happen when you wet the paper and just charge in some color that are kind of out of your control. I love doing aspens with watercolors. It's whenever you have something in the landscape or you're painting, whether it's even still life or figures, to bring out that, when you have white areas, it's really nice in watercolor to leave that white paper showing. And it's like nothing else to give a feeling of light if you get the right amount of medium tones and dark values, and you can do things like this where you can really put something dark behind that. So aspens, paintings with snow are really nice. In watercolor, you can leave big areas of just white paper. It really has some power. So yeah, like in this painting, everything's slightly tinted. Even the sky, it's very light, but there's some blue there. But this is actually just the paper itself. This is almost white here. Almost getting the pure paper, and then that paper is showing through everywhere else too. That whiteness gives it some luminosity. There's a good word.